Okay, and so I thought in order to show you guys the different functions in Power Apps and give you an overview of them, I would bring you to my favorite page in all the Power Apps documentation. There's a lot of great stuff in the documentation, but the page that I come to most is this one right here, the formula reference for Power Apps. This is the page that when I first was learning Power Apps, I would come here and just read through the list of different functions to kind of get the wheels turning on what I could or couldn't do with Power Apps. And now that I'm a Power Apps Pro, well, at least I pretend to be one. Now that I'm pretending to be a Power Apps Pro, what I find is this is the #1 page I come back to. And so there's a couple of different ways that I use this page. There's going through, just reading through, getting an idea. But also if I'm like, I need to work with a record, right? I'm going to just hit the Control F. I'm going to type in record. And so then I can start to find the functions that pertain to records, right? So clear, collect, easy for me to say. Count if. So I would tell you guys, as you start to think about things, is that possible in Power Apps? Come to this page, do a find, try a couple of different words until you find the right word that Power Apps is using. And this is a great way to discover functionality. All right, so what I want to do is I just want to kind of walk through here and talk about some of the different functions and give you an idea of some of my favorites, some of the ones I want you to make sure you know about. So some of my not favorites start at the top here, right? Arc cosines, arc cotangents, right? Turns out Power Apps is really smart at all those classes that I failed in college. So if you need to build solutions where you need to do this advanced math for, plotting out data, creating moving objects, things like that, Power Apps has got your back. There's a lot of great functions for it. I'm just not very good at them. Also, I skipped over acceleration right here, right? Talking about mobile experiences on that mobile device. There's an accelerometer in your device. The acceleration function's how you interact with that. So lots of things. Oh, we got some tangents. We can do some mathy things like average, back. We've talked about those before. There's a bunch of different color ones. And so color ones come into play when you're trying to make and design a prettier app. And so you either want to be able to feed in like the RGBA number, right? So the 3 numbers with the commas. Or if you know the color code, right, that hashtag, pound sign, not hashtag, 6 characters. So there's different functions here for translating those. There's your friend the compass. Who knew that your phone even had a compass? But you can figure out what your app is seeing. So some pretty neat stuff there. Data source info. This is one of those functions that is data source dependent, but some of your data sources will actually show you, like you query them and say, does this user have rights to do this thing? So they have read or edit or those type of rights. And so data source info is sometimes a way you can kind of create a more complete experience depending on if your data source supports it. So check that one out. There are distinct. I can't believe we haven't covered distinct yet. So distinct is a great one for making your drop-downs. Maybe your drop-down list has a bunch of duplicate data and you don't want to go in and make a copy of your data that has only the distinct values. Pass over to it distinct. And so then now instead of showing 7 instances of your supplier's name, it only shows it once because it is only the distinct values out of the list. So I use that one a lot as well. Edit form, we've talked about that before. Ends with, so there's a bunch of these different text ones for doing a little text or string manipulation. So if you need to figure out at the end of the text is this, or the beginning of the text starts with this. So your traditional text functions, especially if you've done things like PowerShell or those type of languages where you want to take a string and manipulate it, there's several functions available for that. First will return the first record out of your collection or out of your data table or out of your data source. So we end up using first a lot of times when I want to get in. Filter is another way to filter your tables. So table is another one of those great words to search this page for and see all the different things that table hit on, because that'll give you a better idea of the functions for working with your data sources because they are tables. Ifs, so we have if, we've talked about that. We've got is error, is blank, is match. Let's take a second and talk about this one. So I'm going to click on is match. And so this is one I have to visit regularly because I can't remember all of them. But is match allows you to go in and check, does the text or the input match a specific pattern? And so we can build those patterns out of different characters. So does it match, question marks and dollar signs and all those crazy things? There's also a bunch of predefined patterns. So for example, do you want them to type in the email of the person they want to send this to? And do you want to validate to make sure that that is actually an email address, right? It has an @ symbol and it has a dot separating the domain at the back. There's a built-in email filter for that. Is it letters? Is it numbers? A lot of different things in here. And then finally, if you're really crazy, you can even use regular expressions and build out your own options. So isMatch is one that I use a lot, but I always have to kind of come back here and do these type of checks, right? So isMatch and then this crazy format that I've made up to make sure they've typed in the data that way I want. So isMatch, he's your friend. Say back. So scroll back down here into the eyes, so a bunch of those. We have load data. There's another one corresponding save data. Those are used if you're trying to make offline apps. Another great topic we're not going to explore in this course, but it is possible to even take your Power Apps offline. Load data, save data, they're a big part of that solution. Also the connection function. Got some more, mids and maxes and mins, more of that math stuff. New form, navigate, we've covered those. You can do ands and ors, so when you're starting to do comparisons and ifs and things like that, we have that capability. Good old plain text, strip out HTML and an XML tags from a string. That could be helpful. Let's see, what other things? We have a search function. We showed that way back in the very beginning of the course. Shuffle, take your data and resort it in a randomized fashion. Other fun things in here. Table, so we use the shortcut, the square brackets for that, but there is a proper table function. So if you need to learn more about how those square brackets work or build your own tables. Tables also come up with email attachments, so you'll get exposed to tables one way or another. And I think that is a bunch of these. So there's a couple more though that I want to show. We'll show those in the next video. So this user function, that's going to give you kind of a breakdown of all of the things we know about the user. And then there's a now function, which is going to tell us the date and timestamp. But we're actually going to go demo those, so I'll see you in a second to do that.